big news, I think it was today, Nintendo announced they were going to finally, after 7 years, halt production of the Nintendo Wii system.
Only in Japan.
Only in Japan.
So far. But still, it's good timing to kind of have a quick retrospective of the Wii.
Sure.
Look back on it. I mean, the damn thing sold over 100 million units.
That makes it, the top 3 most successful consoles of all time?
When I was looking at the chart, I believe it beat... I mean, it was better than anything Nintendo had put out in terms of sales. I mean, it sold...
Well, the NES plus Famicom probably came close.
Okay, sure.
Or if not B, I think the NES sold 80 million in the US. I'm not positive. Or 60 million. I gotta look that up. We can look up the figures right now while you talk. Go on.
But, yeah, I mean, I feel like if Nintendo wants to have any chance of pushing the Wii U, they have to stop selling the system that at a cheaper price seems just as attractive to people. But when you look back on it, it's an interesting system. It came out with a whole lot of buzz and a whole lot of hype.
40 million for the NES, by the way.
It was incredibly hard to come by for its first 2 years of existence. Everyone wanted to have one, and then everyone got a hold of them, and a lot of gamers, tossed theirs, halfway through the system's lifespan. And the last half of the system's lifespan was largely dominated by shovel and bloatware.
Besides the Nintendo first party titles that would come out, like the Link.
Right. And I had one, and I was one of those people. I was very happy to get it initially, and I like many things that I've gotten rid of since I've moved to San Diego. I believe it was fun to trip home for the holidays, and I didn't miss it then, but then I do. I'm glad to have one again now because things like the Kirby collection, Super Mario Galaxy 2, and all, other late release titles. Some of the RPGs that came out, like Xenoblade, Pandora's Tower. I think it's going to be very similar to the N64, where in 5 years, people are going to look back on it much more fondly than they did during its run. For a couple of the same reasons. It was a really good multiplayer system. Mm-hmm. That is a big reason why the N64 sells so well at Luna Video Games, because of the multiplayer, and the Wii had that in spades as well. But also because once you're no longer waiting stretches of months at a time for games to come out, you can look at a library as a whole and be like, damn, the Wii had 35 really good games, and it's only a $40 system now, and why not get one?
And you can use it as a double for a GameCube. Some people might do that.
Right. So I do think, even though opinion on it was pretty sour towards the end, I think it's actually going to be popular again in the future.
I agree. I think if you look at the legacy of it, not just where I think it's going to be, I think people are really, at this point, they don't see, or they take for granted the motion controller aspect of it. They look down at it when I think going forward 12, 15 years from now, when, who knows, maybe motion controllers will be the predominant way of playing with video games. We're kind of inching towards that. We are, a little bit.
Then why are we seeing motion controls take a backseat in all of the next-gen systems?
Because they aren't done well. That's why. Well, the whole point is they tried something different, and it worked. People used the motion controls. That to me is the most important part. In the past, and it didn't work. Didn't work with the U-Force. Didn't work with the Power Glove. I'm just saying. This is the first time it worked.
Yes.
And not only that, it worked, and Sony went from making fun of it to copying it.
Yeah.
Microsoft went from not talking about it to now trying to push it as a main part of their system with the Kinect. And so people can make fun of the Wii, but that's very important. And the fact that it opened gaming up to a lot of people, older people, maybe party goers, that's not a bad thing. It's never a bad thing. No. And people that get on it for, it's just this casual. So, when I moved to San Diego in 2009, the Wii was still pretty strong. A few years after it came out, pretty strong. And I remember going to parties. And people had the Wii out, and they were doing Just Dance. And I thought it was amazing that people that probably weren't gamers primarily had a Nintendo system. They were playing it. I don't care what game they were playing, but they were playing and using it.
Well, this is why the Wii that was the Wii's strongest point, and that's another reason why I was able to part with it so easily. When I got my Wii, I was living in a situation where I was living with 2 other people, and we had people over all the time. People who predominantly did not game or play games. So things like Mario Party and Wii Sports were accessible to all these people. People who, and I mean literally, did not ever touch or look at any of my other games would come over and we'd play Wii. It was a social system, and it really did bring in people because it was accessible. A lot of the most popular multiplayer games used nothing more than the remote, which is a very accessible, non-terrifying controller. It's a Nintendo controller.
It's like a remote controller too.
It's a D-pad. Yeah. It's 2 little buttons and a big button, and a trigger. So it was easy for these people to get into it. When I moved from that apartment into a much more solitary apartment where my roommate and I did not converse much, he was always out of town, and I had to look at it from the viewpoint of a single-player system, I did not use it as much. So, yeah, it was great at pulling in people. Yeah. It was great for multiplayer. It just didn't have the single-player titles that people needed. But, like I said, when you now look back at it, if you call that chapter closed and you look back at it, you can find... I would say, if I'm going to be conservative, you could find 10 good single-player games for that system. And honestly, I don't believe that the N64 has many more, and that's a hugely popular system.
No. And I think the other thing, besides the motion controls, which that was more... It worked overall. Certain software was better than others on utilizing it and doing well. I know they added the Wii, the Motion Control Plus to make it even better. I actually have no experience with that.
Same.
It probably makes it better. It probably does. Who knows? I'm just gonna guess and say it does. But the other legacy that people forget, the Virtual Console was hugely important to gaming. Having downloadable titles and having a library available for the first time on a console to that extent, that's huge. And that's never gonna go away ever again.
No. And for a company that is often derided and looked down upon for not being with the times, they handled and turned emulation and retro the rising popularity of retro games in their favor quicker and better than anyone did.
I always cite the Wii as a turning point in pushing and helping retro gaming becoming a bigger thing.
It's sad to me that the company that really popularized it and pushed it is also the company that kind of takes the Virtual Console for granted now and doesn't really put much up on there. But the importance of what they did in the early launch days of the Wii can't be understated. Putting a bunch of Nintendo games, many of which that would go for far more than $5 up there for $5 a pop. Mm-hmm. Introducing people to it's not even so much the Nintendo, but the fact that they had TurboGrafx games.
Yeah, they welcome other systems. Sega
Genesis games up there. Systems that other people maybe did not have as much experience with. It really opened a lot of people's eyes up to great games. I mean, I have friends who can talk to me about Devil's Crush, and it's not because they play Turbo now. It's not because they had one as a kid. It's because someone tipped them off to it on the Virtual Console, and now they play one of the best, but most slightly obscure, pinball games on a retro system.
So you agree that it helped rise the popularity of retro gaming?
It absolutely did. It absolutely helped that.
The extent's hard, but that is, at least in my mind, because I've been collecting games since '99. To me, though, that was the point delineation when game prices all of a sudden went from nothing or low to all of a sudden people started to notice it at that point and
that's a separate conversation. It might not have been great for prices, but it certainly was good for popularity.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying we can't have one without the other. If people start playing these games, if they start playing Devil's Crush, maybe then they want to own it.
Yeah.
Or maybe they want to own a random NES game they just bought for $1 because it's on sale, like Baseball Stars or I'm just throwing that out there. But yeah, and of course that was having downloadable titles for consoles. All of a sudden PlayStation starts doing that, and then Microsoft.
They all had their own, but it was realizing that there was a demand for the back catalog.
Yeah, and like I said, it was emulation. It was directly emulation. Mm-hmm. They were using Nintendo. They weren't lying about it. It was cool. You can save them on the Wii, and it was fine. So my Wii, I haven't honestly probably turned it on in like 2 years. I've played it since I've been here. I still look for titles for it. When I picked up, I always wanted to find pretty cheap, Mario Kart for it, and I think I found it for like $15. It's like, yeah, score, and I have like the Paper Mario on it, and I have the Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. I have some of those games. I have Okami. I have Red Steel because it's one of the first games. So I have a decent library that I find, and I have both Zelda games. They had 2 on there, right?
Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess.
Twilight Princess, yeah. Do I have Skyward Sword?
Skyward Sword needs Motion Plus, so if you do have it, you haven't played it.
No. Is Skyward Sword basically the last probably huge Wii title that's probably going to be... That came out last year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember...
Last landmark title?
I'm trying to remember the timeline, but it was the 3 quote-unquote Operation Rainfall RPGs and Skyward Sword. It was certainly the last big Nintendo one.
Because honestly, E3, I can't remember a big Wii title they were pushing. It was all 3DS and Wii U.
Well, yeah.
Pikmin
I
3.
mean, no, I mean it's done. I mean, Nintendo's at least done with it.
But so yeah, we love you, Wii. Like I said, it's a cheap console, a stable console.
I like you as a friend, Wii.
Like as a friend, yeah,
I'm not in love with it, but I like you as a friend.
You're not gonna make a mistake one night and wake up next morning like, what the hell did I do? No. But you'll hang out with it. And
I'll hang out
casually. Just friend zone it. So
I can't believe you just used that term.
You friend zone the Wii, basically. So hopefully the Wii U. We always talk about how the name is a huge part of it and the marketing of it. Maybe it's a point where they jump off from it and just call it something else. I don't know. Just put something else on the freaking box. Whatever. Call it the Ultra Wii.
They made it look like it looks like a Wii well.
That was their biggest problem too. They should have changed the color radically to like, I don't know, blue.
Make it look like a hockey net or a hot rod.
Or hockey net? I don't know. Really, a hot rod.
Anything. I mean,
how about just a malt shake maker then? A hot rod is in the 50s.
All right. So, moving on.
We